Hi everybody, it's me Gemma, and this is my favourite books of 2019. I read 139 books in 2019, around 54,000 pages. My average rating was somewhere around 3.79, at least according to Goodreads stats for the year. So I have organised it a little like best categories, and I'll tell you what I liked about them this year and if I'm going to carry on with them if they're a series or not. So, best thriller this year for me was A Book of Bones by John Connolly, and this is the latest book in the Charlie Parker series, which has now been going for, believe it or not, 20 years. And it deals with Charlie Parker. He is a private detective. He has become involved in a sort of larger scheme of fate and destiny and forces of good and evil battling against each other. Some of the books are very standalone thrillers. There's a big bad of the book, a case, and it doesn't really connect much to the overall arc of the series. This one, however, really is both a culmination and a continuation of the overarching storyline, which makes it really hard to talk about what it's actually about. But there's a book. It's a book of worlds, a book of different realities, and it's all about Charlie Parker and his colleagues, his friends, trying to get to it before the bad guys do. Now, this is a chunky book, and this is the first book as well that is set mainly outside of America, outside of Maine, and it's set a lot in London and England. There's a lot of well-researched history in this book regarding sort of Christian sects and also general history of bookbinding and things like that, which I find really interesting. I gave this 5 stars. I don't think I've ever disliked a Charlie Parker book. I never have. Some of them have been better than others, and I would say this one comes out at the sort of top end of the series. And then this is my new favourite series, and it's Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I had bought this book on Kindle and then didn't read it for ages and ages, and then I bought it in paperback, devoured it, and loved it. Now, the covers for the UK editions, I think, are just really, really good looking, and it is about a girl called Mia Corvair. She has had some really terrible things happen to her, and she joins a school for assassins to get revenge on the people who have wronged her. It's a very sort of Roman Empire tinged fantasy, and there's great world building. They live in the sort of body of a downed god, like the ribs and the spine and things like that. And also there's some cool new magic systems. The way the world is set up, I really enjoy it. I've read the second one, I have the third one, I will read it, I promise. But this was my new favourite series of 2019, and I would thoroughly recommend it to pretty much anyone. And this was my favourite standalone of 2019. It is Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. Now, middle game, I believe, is a chess term, and that is so appropriate for this book, as is the illustration on the front. When you find out what this is, you're like, oh no. It follows a set of twins called Roger and Dodger, who are the human embodiments of sort of alchemical principles, and it follows the people who made Roger and Dodger, their families, how they meet, and just generally their lives and how things go for them. It's really, really good. Definitely not young adult. It's definitely an adult book, which I really enjoyed. There was some real, not gory, but disturbing bits in it, I would say. And again, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Would thoroughly recommend it to anybody that likes fantasy, but again, I would emphasise it is adult rather than young adult. Favourite romance of the year, favourite fantasy romance of the year was The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. Now, this wasn't published in 2019. I believe it's actually 2017 or 2018 title, but I picked it up this year. I'm just trying to check which year it was. Come on. It's actually 2016. This one was published, and it follows Shazzy and Khalid. Shazzy is the Scheherazade of the story, and Khalid is the Sultan in the story, and it has a sort of basis in the 1001 Arabian Nights. Lovely love story, very enemies to friends to lovers. If you are into the sort of, you know, we're enemies and now we're forced into marriage sort of dynamic, I think you'll really love this. So I really did. Loved it. This was my favourite cover of the year. It is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is hysterical, this book. I really loved it. Gave it 5 stars. It's a pretty cool mix between science fiction and fantasy. Like, there's necromancy, but there's also spaceships. And it basically follows Gideon Nav, who is a sort of warrior, cavalier type, and she is embroiled in the comings and goings of the necromancers in her family. Really fun, really, I would say I haven't read much exactly like that before because of the mixture, the fusion between sci-fi and fantasy, and I know some people were off-put by that, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Can't wait for Harrow the Ninth to come out next year. Now, this was my favourite young adult of the year, and it is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. What a great surprise this was to me. I had a little bit of a thing about Brandon Sanderson because he finished off The Wheel of Time, and The Wheel of Time was my favourite fantasy series ever, and I really didn't like the ending. It took me a while to get over that, and the fact that Robert Jordan really did write the plot for it. Brandon Sanderson just sort of finished off the writing. So I gave Brandon Sanderson a shot this year. The first one I tried was Skyward. It's a really great young adult sci-fi where the protagonist Spencer wants to be a pilot, but her father is sort of gone down in history as a coward, and it's holding her back from doing what she wants to do. I think this would be a great first foray into sci-fi for people who want to get into sci-fi but are a bit off-put by normally the sciencey, hard science part of sci-fi. I would say this is pretty accessible for young adults who want to get into sci-fi, and also for, you know, adults who want to start off there as well. Skyward, and now the new one Starsight has come out. Really enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars. Best of the year. Now, this was my favourite standalone contemporary, and it is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I think everyone read this year. It's a romance between Alex, the first son of America, and Henry, a prince of the United Kingdom. Not the Prince of Wales. I say this every single time I talk about it, but he's not the Prince of Wales. He's just a prince. Prince of Wales is the heir to the throne. Not any other. Sorry, that really bugs me. I'm not a big fan of the royal family, but it bugs me all the way through. So Alex and Henry are again an enemies to lovers, and it's got a nice happy ending. Lovely romance in the middle, gets a bit steamy at points. I really enjoyed it. There's not much more I can say about it. I think that other people haven't, you know, said before. It's just really great to see rom-coms that are queer, that are gay, coming into the mainstream. It's totally great to see them sitting on the same bookshelves as other contemporary romances when, you know, I remember 10-15 years ago when they had their own little sliver of a shelf in Borders. So love this. Go read it, it'll make you happy. So my favourite surprise of the year was The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. I had not seen any sort of reviews of this. I hadn't seen it pop up on Twitter, I bought it mainly on the strength of the cover, which I thought was absolutely stunning, and the copy on the back, the beast raged, it punctured the air with its spite, but the girl was fiercer. I loved it, and I was like, I'm gonna read that. It's about a girl called T, and she is a bone witch or a necromancer. There are not that many bone witches around, and they are needed but feared and not wanted. So she has to train as a bone witch and comes into, as is usual, the politics of the sort of world that she lives in. I have bought the next two, and I will report back on the rest of the series. But this was a great surprise for me. I devoured it, I think, within a couple of hours because I was just sort of like nose in the book. So that was really great. Loved that. This is my favourite new magic system of the year, and I really love this series. I read all three books. I read Red, Grey and Holy Sister this year, and they all focus on Nona Grey, who is a child who was sold into slavery by her village, and she ends up training at a convent for magical nuns. It's just as awesome as you think. It's again got that little mix of sci-fi in it, a little mix of fantasy, and the magic system is really great. And it also, like I say, has that mix of sci-fi in it as well. Like, there are objects in this world that are, you feel, technologically advanced rather than strictly magic, which I really liked. And I really liked the character of Nona. She's just a little bit different from protagonists that I've spent time with in other books, and despite being very clever, she can also be very, very dumb about human interaction, and she is very focused on her friendships, and once you are her friend, she will raise the earth to the ground for you, which I thought was awesome. So I thoroughly recommend this whole series. I thought the last book could have been longer, but I would still give the series as a whole 5 stars. Now, I also had a new favourite author this year, and that was Claire Legrand. Now, I read Furyborn, which is a fantasy with dual perspectives, and I also read Sawkill Girls, which is a sort of young adult horror or new adult horror. The first one I read was Sawkill Girls, and that was on a couple of people's recommendations. They talked about it as being a sort of feminist horror. 3 girls live on an island on which there is a monster that has been killing girls for many years, and they sort of unite to stop it. It's so good. I honestly got to the end and had to sort of go for a walk, put it down and go for a walk and think about it, about what I loved about it so much. And I would just thoroughly recommend it. I really don't want to go into too much detail about it because I think to do that would spoil it. I think the cover gives you enough information. If you are sort of if you have triggers, I would Google the trigger warnings for this book first, just to be sure, because there are some bits in it that if you were sensitive to that kind of thing, you might not like. But I would really, if I could get everyone to read one book this year that I loved, it would be this one. Honestly, if I could make you read one book, it would be Sawkill Girls. And then, like I said, I also read Furyborn, which is dual perspective fantasy about 2 sort of women separated by a long time, and there's a prophecy there'll be a rise of 2 queens, one a blood queen and one a sun queen, and obviously there's going to be one good and one evil. You don't really know which one's going to be which until the end, and while I did see the twist coming, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I have bought Kingsbane, which I'm also going to read this year. Now, last of my favourites is A Court of Mist and Fury. And I would say this is my favourite guilty pleasure, but I don't actually have any guilt about my pleasures. So, just a favourite. I was watching The Naughty Librarian, and she was saying that you're either a Court of Thorns and Roses bitch or you're a Throne of Glass bitch. I am definitely a core of Thorns and Roses bitch. I really love Feyre, but the only thing I don't like about this book is her sisters. I hate both of them. Wish they would just stay far away, but of course that's not going to happen. What I really love about Sarah J Maas books in general is that you know you're going to get a happy ending. You know it. Like, there's no way they're not going to get together, they're not going to be happy, they're not going to be true mates and get married. You know they're going to. And that's what I love. If you want something that's going to be predictable in a good way, if you just want, you know, some great ridiculous things, just read this. I mean, it's not high literature, but it doesn't need to be if you get pleasure from it. And I hear there's another book coming out, which I will definitely be reading. I did finish Throne of Glass series this year as well, but I found them kind of not really good and not really bad. I just found them kind of middling. I don't speak to you or see you before then, and take care. Bye bye.